The line kept growing. People stood shoulder to shoulder beneath the unforgiving Washington heat, wrapping around the DC Open grounds until even longtime tournament regulars stopped and asked the same question. What is everyone waiting for? It looked like the opening morning of a Grand Slam final. Except it wasn't. This was an ordinary WTA 500 event. Yet thousands of fans had arrived long before play began, determined to secure one thing, and one thing only: Alex Eala. What made the scene even more remarkable was that the tournament hadn't built its marketing campaign around her. Her name wasn't the centerpiece of the early promotional material. She wasn't presented as the headline attraction. And still, before organizers had even officially confirmed her place in the main draw, the event was almost completely sold out. That raised a question no one inside professional tennis could comfortably ignore anymore. If the marketing wasn't driving demand, who was? The answer wasn't hidden inside a boardroom or advertising strategy. It was unfolding across thousands of phones around the world. Filipino communities coordinated ticket purchases through local Facebook groups. Friends shared resale listings before they disappeared. Fans refreshed ticket websites deep into the night across different time zones, hoping another seat would appear. By the time many people realized what was happening, nearly everything was already gone. The final few tickets became a race. Not because of a championship match. Because of one 20-year-old player. For years, tennis has measured popularity using television ratings, sponsorships, rankings, and carefully planned promotions. But Washington revealed something those numbers couldn't fully capture. This wasn't manufactured excitement. It was grassroots momentum powerful enough to overwhelm the traditional system before it even realized what was happening. And if anyone believed the DC Open was an isolated case, they only needed to rewind a few days. Just 5 days earlier, Alex Eala walked off center court at Wimbledon after losing a demanding 3-set battle to Jasmine Paolini, 6-4, 4-6, 6-3. Defeat ended her run, but it wasn't the story people remembered. 48 hours before that match, she had delivered one of the defining moments of the tournament. Standing across the net was Iga Swiatek, the reigning world #1 and 3-time Roland Garros champion. Few expected the 20-year-old Filipina to survive the challenge. Even fewer imagined what happened next. Eala captured a dramatic opening set tiebreak before taking complete control of the second set, eliminating the defending champion and sending shockwaves through Wimbledon. The upset transformed everything. Suddenly, a player many casual fans had barely noticed weeks earlier became one of the biggest stories in tennis. Broadcasters adjusted coverage. Headlines spread across continents. Fans who had never watched one of her matches wanted to know who she was. But for many supporters, especially within the global Filipino community, this wasn't the beginning. It was validation. Because long before Wimbledon, they had already been trying to convince the tennis world that Alex Eala represented something much bigger than another promising young player. The sport simply wasn't listening. Evidence of that disconnect stretches back to the opening Grand Slam of the year. January. Australian Open. Eala's first-round match against Alicia Parks wasn't scheduled on one of Melbourne Park's major show courts. Instead, organizers assigned it to Court 6, one of the smaller outside courts, built for modest crowds and routine early-round matches. On paper, it seemed reasonable. In reality, it became a logistical nightmare. The queues began building hours before the first serve. Fans packed every available viewing area. Hundreds struggled to find space. Many remained standing throughout the entire match because there simply weren't enough seats to accommodate the demand. The congestion became impossible to ignore. Spectators documented the endless lines across social media. Reddit users described the atmosphere as chaotic. Yahoo Sports reported on what it called a scheduling blunder that created major crowd problems. Front Office Sports later noted that the unexpected attendance overwhelmed available seating and security planning. None of that happened because the match carried championship stakes. It happened because organizers underestimated who Alex Eala was bringing through the gates. The irony became impossible to miss. The tournament treated her like a lower-profile first-round player. The fans treated her like a star. Only weeks later, another major event would reveal how differently the same situation could be handled. Indian Wells didn't just notice the crowds. It embraced them. Morning practice sessions usually attract dedicated tennis fans, photographers, and a handful of curious spectators. But when Eala stepped onto the practice court in March, the scene looked very different. Crowds gathered early. People lined the fences. Phones filled the air before a single rally began. Front office sports observed something remarkable. While established men's stars such as Alexander Zverev and Taylor Fritz practiced nearby with relatively modest audiences, significantly larger crowds surrounded Eala's court. The atmosphere resembled what tournament officials normally expected when players like Carlos Alcaraz, Jannik Sinner, or Venus Williams were on site. That comparison mattered. Practice sessions don't generate excitement through rankings alone. Fans choose where they spend their time, without being told, without marketing campaigns, without television schedules. They simply go where they feel something special might happen. Indian Wells recognized that immediately. Philippe Dor, an executive with the BNP Paribas Open, didn't describe the crowds as an inconvenience or an operational headache. He welcomed them. "We love every single minute of this phenomenon," he explained, emphasizing that the tournament benefited commercially and actively promoted the growing attention. Those words revealed two completely different philosophies. One tournament saw unexpected popularity as a problem to manage. Another saw it as an opportunity to build upon. The player hadn't changed. The audience hadn't changed. Only the people making decisions had. That difference would become impossible to ignore once Washington arrived. Because by the time the DC Open announced its promotional lineup, Elena Rybakina, Marta Kostyuk, Naomi Osaka, and Venus Williams naturally occupied the biggest headlines. Alex Eala appeared further down the announcement under the description, "Rising Filipina Star." Nothing suggested what was about to happen next. 9 days later, tournament chairman Mark Ein revealed on radio that ticket availability had become extremely scarce. Nearly 97% had already been sold. The remarkable part wasn't just the number. It was who had created it. Not a multimillion-dollar advertising campaign. Not a headline final. Not decades of tournament tradition. An organized, passionate community of fans who refused to wait for the tennis establishment to recognize what they had already seen. And Washington was only the latest chapter in a story that seemed to grow louder every month, leaving one unavoidable question hanging over the rest of the 2026 season. If one player could change attendance before even stepping onto the court, what would happen once the biggest tournaments in North America arrived? That question became even harder to dismiss because one of the most respected voices in tennis had already offered an answer months earlier. In January, while the Australian Open was still dealing with the unexpected crowd surrounding Alex Eala's matches, Novak Djokovic was asked about the growing phenomenon during an interview with ABS-CBN. His response was remarkably simple. He called it a very good problem to have. Coming from a 24-time Grand Slam champion, those words carried unusual weight. Djokovic has witnessed generations of rising stars arrive with enormous expectations. He has seen media hype come and go. He understands the difference between temporary excitement and genuine public demand. He wasn't talking about rankings. He wasn't talking about marketing. He was talking about fans. When someone with that perspective describes overwhelming attendance as a positive problem, it becomes difficult to argue that what happened in Melbourne, Indian Wells, Wimbledon, and Washington was merely coincidence. The signs had been visible for months. The question was whether the sports decision-makers were paying attention. Because the calendar wasn't slowing down. The National Bank Open in Toronto stood next. Then Cincinnati. Then the US Open. 3 major tournaments. 3 more opportunities to prove that the lessons of the season had actually been learned. Toronto, in particular, presented an intriguing test. The city is home to one of North America's largest Filipino-Canadian communities, creating another environment where local support could translate into extraordinary demand. Cincinnati offered a different challenge, where Eala's growing international reputation, not just regional support, could shape attendance. And then came New York, the US Open. Following her breakthrough Wimbledon run, Eala's projected seeding hovered around number 28, placing her in position to become one of the tournament's featured names. That raised another important question. Would organizers proactively schedule her on larger courts and premium sessions? Or would they once again underestimate the audience she could attract before scrambling to react? Those questions extended beyond scheduling. They pointed toward something much bigger. The Philippines, with a population of approximately 115 million people, has long been known as one of the world's most passionate basketball nations. Yet tennis has steadily gained new attention through one athlete's rise. Match after match, tournament after tournament, Alex Eala has introduced a new generation of Filipino fans to a sport that previously occupied a much smaller place in the country's sporting culture. The impact doesn't stop within the Philippines. Large Filipino communities across California, Nevada, Virginia, Ontario, and countries throughout the Gulf region have created a global network of supporters that travels, watches, buys tickets, and follows every milestone. Sports journalist T.J. Manitok offered perhaps the clearest explanation when speaking to Front Office Sports. He said the Philippines had been searching for the next sporting figure capable of uniting the nation in the way Manny Pacquiao once did. During Pacquiao's biggest fights, daily life across the country seemed to pause as millions gathered around televisions. The comparison wasn't presented as a prediction that history would repeat itself. It was an observation about the power a single athlete can have when people see themselves reflected in that journey. That helps explain why Washington's ticket story mattered far beyond one tournament. The WTA didn't personally create those long lines outside the gates. Fans did. They organized independently. They shared information without official campaigns. They searched for resale tickets, coordinated travel, and filled the stands because they believed they were witnessing something special. That kind of loyalty can't simply be purchased through advertising. It has to be earned. Perhaps the most revealing moment of all came after Wimbledon. Following her emotional loss to Jasmine Paolini, Eala faced reporters with every opportunity to blame exhaustion, a demanding schedule, or the forearm discomfort she had experienced during the tournament. She chose none of them. Instead, she acknowledged that it had been a long season and calmly looked ahead. No excuses. No frustration. Just perspective. That quiet response may explain why so many people continue investing emotionally in her journey. Breakthrough victories create headlines. Character creates lasting belief. Even Iga Swiatek responded with respect after her own defeat, acknowledging that sometimes an opponent simply plays better tennis. There were no dramatic controversies. No attempts to diminish what had happened. Only recognition of the performance that unfolded on court. That mutual respect reflected what elite competition should look like. And it reminded everyone that Eala's story has never depended on winning every match. It has depended on what happens after each one. The hard-court season would soon provide the next answers. Would tournament organizers finally anticipate the crowds instead of reacting to them? Would premium courts replace the outer-court chaos that defined Melbourne? Would Washington become the turning point that convinced tennis executives a cultural shift was already underway? No one could answer those questions yet. But one thing had become increasingly difficult to dispute. From the packed practice courts of Indian Wells to the unforgettable upset at Wimbledon, from the overwhelming demand at the DC Open to the growing anticipation surrounding Toronto, Cincinnati, and New York, the pattern remained remarkably consistent. The fans had already made their decision. Now the tennis world had to decide whether it was ready to catch up.